Welcome, everybody, to Live for the Moment podcast, a podcast dedicated to share my story of addiction and recovery, the ups and downs, the good days and bad days. I hope to reach as many people as I can who are struggling with addiction in the hopes that my story inspires you either to get sober or to stay sober. Because I know if I can do it, you can do it. I'm Roger, your host. Let's get into episode 3. You're out of rehab, and now what? So today I just want to talk about something that doesn't really get talked about a lot or enough. What actually happens after rehab? Because a lot of people think that rehab is the finish line, right? Like once you get out, everything just goes back to normal. But that's not how it works. In a lot of ways, that's actually where things get things start getting real. I remember that exact moment when reality hit me. The second I was picked up from rehab, I was reminded that just because I was out didn't mean everything was fixed. My marriage was not fixed. We were going to remain separated. That was kind of the trajectory right before I went in, and coming out 30 days later did nothing to correct that. So I was going into a situation that was not safe per se. Um, so at that moment, that reality check was a big reality check for me because getting sober just didn't magically repair everything I had left damaged. It didn't erase the consequences. It didn't fast forward relationships to where they used to be. Life was still exactly where I had left it. The only difference was now I had to face it without numbing it. And that's something that a lot of people aren't prepared for. When you leave rehab, you're not walking back into a clean slate. It's not like you start over and forget everything that happened. There's still a lot of trauma. There's still a lot of unhealed wounds. There's still a lot of things that still need to be corrected. And even though I was able to heal or begin my healing process and by owning it and forgiving myself, my wife still hadn't. My kids still hadn't processed the whole situation. So putting them into that predicament as well kind of was not a safe environment for them either. Um, you're walking back, like I said, you're walking back into real life, the same situations, the same people, the same unresolved problems, sometimes even worse than before. And if you're not ready for that mentally, it can be hard because in that moment, you've got a choice. You can either face it head on or you can fall back into your old ways. You used to cope with things, right? And that's why we're here, right? You don't want that person, right? That's why I think it's so important that you face your reality, but you find a safe place. And you have to build that foundation of who you're going to be as a sober person. What kind of people, well, how are you going to deal with the everyday hustle and bustle of life? And you have to build that foundation before you move forward and try to heal the old wounds that you've left behind. And for me, it was just that realization was uncomfortable. It brought up a lot of emotions, uncertainty, stress, probably some fear too. Because now it wasn't just about staying sober, it was about figuring out how to live in the middle of everything I hadn't fixed. It was about figuring out how to live in the middle of everything I hadn't fixed. And that's why this part of the recovery matters so much. Not just getting sober, but what you walk into afterwards. Because your environment, your situation, your support system, your stability, that's what's going to either help you move forward or pull you backwards. And that is why it is very important that you know and find a safe place when you come out. So if you're in that place right now or about to be, just know this. It's normal if things aren't okay right away. It's normal if life doesn't snap back together. And it's normal if it feels harder than you expected. Recovery doesn't fix everything overnight. It just doesn't. It's just the reality of it. It gives you the chance, though, to start fixing things the right way. And sometimes that starts with just being honest about where things really are. I want to go in a little bit deeper into something that can make or break your recovery early on, and that's stability. But here's the truth: every recovery is fragile. It doesn't mean you're weak, it means you're human. Your mind is still adjusting, your habits are still forming, and everything you used to rely on is no longer there, right? And that's where building that foundation of who you're going to be now, right? You're trying to rewire your brain. Your brain was being rewired in rehab to not deal with it with using drugs, right? You're really rewiring your brain. And in my case, I'm rewiring my brain over 30 years of addiction. So when you leave rehab and you walk into chaos, stress, or uncertainty, it's not just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. For me, I didn't walk into a stable situation. Like I talked before, my marriage was still separated. We were not going to get back together. My wife still had a bunch of a bunch of healing to do, and that created a level of instability right away for me, not just physically but emotionally, because now I wasn't just focused on staying sober. I was dealing with relationship stress, uncertainty, and everything that comes with that. And those kind of emotions, they don't just sit quietly. They build. They build. And as you know, us as addicts, we're constantly battling and fighting. As for me, as an example, I'm constantly battling my brain and my thoughts and everything. Still trying to get rewired. Still trying to get rewired. 2.5 years into my sobriety, into my recovery, I am still rewiring my brain to being a sober person. And early in recovery, when you don't have your old coping mechanisms anymore, the pressure can feel overwhelming, right? I used to just make a call and I'm fixed. All right, I'm good. I don't have to deal with this. This is where a lot of people struggle. Not because they don't want to stay sober, but because they're trying to stay sober in an environment that keeps triggering them. Stability gives you something to stand on, building that foundation. Without it, you're constantly trying to balance, and eventually it gets exhausting. Think about it like this: if everything around you feels uncertain, your brain is going to look for something familiar. And for a lot of us, what's familiar is unhealthy. That's why stability matters so much. It gives you space to breathe. It gives you consistency. It gives you a chance to actually think clearly. Looking back, I can see how important that was for me. But even though things weren't stable in my relationship, I had to find stability somewhere else. And where was that? Alone, by myself. I'm trying to do my meditations, do my thing while the dogs are barking, while my wife is cooking, while my wife is cleaning, the kids are making a mess, the kids are out, got worried about that. So there's just so much pressure. It doesn't give you if you're not in a safe environment, there's so much going on that's going to hinder your recovery early on. And that was again my routine. I tried to do my routine constantly, staying with what I was doing in rehab, meetings, just in small daily decisions. Right, I would do daily check-ins. I would do. Then I brought my family into my daily check-ins because if I didn't create some kind of stability, everything around me could have pulled me right back into my old patterns. And here's the important part: stability doesn't have to be perfect. It does not have to be perfect. It just has to be enough. Enough to give you a foundation, enough to keep you grounded, and enough to get you through one day at a time. That's why stability is so important. And that's why building that foundation of who you're going to be sober is critical early on in your recovery, especially when you're coming out of rehab. So if you're early on in recovery right now, pay attention. Pay attention to what your environment feels like. Is it helping you stay steady, or is it constantly throwing you off balance? Because that answer matters more than you might think. Thank you guys very much. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about how your environment shapes your behavior and why changing your surroundings can be just important as changing yourself. But for now, focus on finding your footing, even if it's small, even if it's not perfect. It matters. Thank you guys for listening.